3, 2, 1.
Well, that's been a busy week, lads, hasn't it?
It was amazing. Great feedback.
Yeah, apart from my wife, who reckoned that you were the star of the show, Anthony.
Well, that was a given.
But I think we heard from Shrek, didn't we, on Instagram?
Yeah, Shrek from the New Spirit podcast. Shrek's given us his blessing and encouragement going forward, which is really cool. Yeah, so this week's been really cool. We've had loads of feedback from the community. Everyone's been really excited, and I don't know about you lads, but I didn't think we'd have this much positive feedback so early on.
Yeah, big thanks to everybody that's got in touch to say how much they're enjoying it.
Yeah, I've had a Hollywood say that they want to get my hand and feet prints on the walk, so I'll probably miss a couple soon.
So we have had something a little bit out of the ordinary, though, haven't we? So I'll let Anthony explain that one.
Oh, the Facebook drama. Yeah, that was that was fun. I think episode 1 may have ruffled a few feathers in the spearfishing, not necessarily the community, but with a couple of people that we shall not name. But it means that I have a new Facebook and have had a massive friend cull, which is fantastic. So, yeah, but other than that, we're not dwelling on it. It's fantastic to see the feedback, good and bad. And, yeah, roll on the rest of the episodes and the Spearo Hangout.
Absolutely. It feels like ages since we did the last episode. We've been on quite a few trips, haven't we? Without Richard, unfortunately. Richard, sorry for that, mate. But what have we got? 3 times, Anthony, this week?
Yeah.
You've caught all the bass. I seem to have blanked almost every single time.
Yeah, but it's because Richard's not been very well.
Yeah, poor
Richard. I'm just trying to give you guys an opportunity to get a little further ahead in the competition, really. But, I did have a little operation earlier in the week, so I've got a few stitches, but I'll be back into the weekend and I'll be catching up.
What was that for? Are they actually giving you a heart now?
I've got a built-in GPS now.
Oh, like my watch. Hey.
Nice.
So, you lads have been having a busy week. So you've been out spearfishing, and I believe you've been over to the Frenchman's spear gun class. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the Exeter Club did a little introduction to spear gun rigging. So Max, the Frenchman, showed us how to tie your bands properly, all the different knots. So that was really like a really good introduction at kind of my beginner level. And I guess it's one of the great things about being part of a club is those kind of introductory sessions. We've also got a boat dive this weekend as well, so another great club event. So Richard, you're obviously not in our club, but hopefully you can make it at the weekend.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be there this Saturday. But we'll definitely be going out tomorrow night. I've got the kids this weekend, so we'll go some river or something. But no, the trips, Christ, yeah. How much spearfishing have we done this week? Like masses.
Yeah, it's been epic.
And after episode 1, I've now decided that I'm now just going to put coordinates for exactly where we went in the comments after the podcast, just so that everybody knows where we are. But no, we did a Devon trip, a Cornwall trip with Mr. Paul Maxwell, and it was fantastic. Also testing the Spearo Hangout bus that we're taking up to Scotland in September.
Can't wait for that.
Oh, yeah, man.
So, it was a really good trip.
So, you've been diving with another South African, and I actually feel a little bit offended.
Well, he's more of a sneaky prawn than you are. But, yeah, no, he was he's been diving probably for as old as we are. So, He knows a thing or two, but we went to a brand new spot none of us have been to. Again, I'll put the coordinates in later on. It's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I love Paul. He's a great guy. Paul, I've got a lot of time for him. So I don't know about you lads, but let's get into this episode, shall we?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Spearo Hangout, where we talk all things spearfishing, free diving and foraging. We're 3 guys from Devon in the UK who are excited to share some of the learnings from our spearfishing journey with you over the coming episodes. We bring in some special guests along the way to help spread some in-depth Spearo knowledge from some of the most experienced people in the scene. Yeah, so who have we got coming? Give us a little introduction.
Yeah, so on this episode, we got Matt Newman. He's
from Dry Dock, isn't he? Spear Dock. We're going to have to delete that.
There's a lot we're going to have to delete from that introduction, mate. I think we'll be left with about 30 seconds, I reckon.
Lol.
Yeah, so Matt Newman is our guest for this week's episode. He's a sponsored diver for Team Spear Dock. And yeah, we're gonna get into it with him. So Matt Newman, welcome to the Spearo Hangout podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Have you met my co-hosts Ben and Anthony before?
I've met Anthony before, but not Ben.
Nice
Hello, Matt.
We had a very nice chat, didn't we, at Talon Bay?
We did, as we were both comparing our very sexy fins.
Indeed, we were.
But yeah, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
Getting in the water recently?
Not too much. I've been stacked out with work and sort of like family bits going on, so not as much as I normally do. It's been a bit on the back burner. However, I'm still following everyone else's catch reports and trying to keep involved with the community that way. Nice.
Well, I think you've got loads of questions from Rich coming throughout this, so be prepared to work your brain.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, so thanks for coming on, Matt. Do you want to give us a quick rundown of who you are, how you got into the sport, and what it sort of means to you? I mean, don't have to go too far back, but wherever you find appropriate, really.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm Matt Newman, known on social media as Matty Spearo, Facebook and Instagram. Quite active on a few of the pages there. I've been spearfishing since I was 14, so that's about 19 years now. I'm originally from Dorset, a little place called Weymouth, next to Portland. So that's where I grew up. I sort of got into it. I was doing a lot of like snorkeling and kayaking and kayak fishing. So yeah, one day I went out just with a little mask and snorkel, and I saw some fish. So I went back and I said to my dad about it. He grabbed hold of a piece of steel out of the garage, sharpened it up, a little bit of heat shrink on there, and then said to me, "Off you go, see what you can get." Both him, he was shocked and proud. My mum was shocked and scared when I came back with two quite large plaice, one being 3.5 pounds, the other being 6.5 pounds. And from then they said, "Okay, let's see what else you can get." So a year later, when I was 15, I was allowed my first spear gun. And off I went out with friends and sort of messing around in the shallows like you do. And the first fish I ever shot was actually a double figure thornback ray. At the time, I was young. I had sort of like scuba fins on and a mismatched wetsuit that I think I bought from Asda or somewhere. And I remember thinking, I shot this fish and I was like, brilliant. I feel a bit funny. And what am I meant to do with this now? And I looked up and the surface of the water was actually above me. The fish had pulled me underwater without me realising. So yeah, it was quite like seeing this 15-year-old lad with a catch bag tied around his waist coming in with tails and rays hanging out everywhere.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. Just goes to show you don't actually need all the high-tech equipment, do you?
No, I think like flashy equipment buys more spearos and catches more spearos than it does fish. But that being said, I've got quite an expensive liner for the minute, so can't say too much, can I?
Skate wing is my favourite all-time fish. I think I said last episode, but yeah, it's a beautiful eating fish.
To be perfectly honest, I was quite gutted about that because I cut the wings off and put them in the freezer ready to eat. And whether it's my little brother or sister or what, but someone left the freezer undone.
Oh.
So we had to cook everything. So I never actually ate it, and I've never shot a ray since because I just can't bring myself to.
Oh, no way. Yeah, well, Anthony is known for eating everything he can find around here, isn't he, Ben?
Yeah, we call him the Ras Monster.
I just make sure that I, shoot anything that moves and then make sure I eat it. But let's not get me back into my recipe.
Yeah, and to be fair on him, his food does look incredible when he posts it on Instagram. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying your Ras ceviche at some point.
It's all just good filters.
I found that if you catch larger bass, you can get like some really thick, nice fillets off them.
Oh, good. Yeah. So I would say with wrasse, always go for the massive grouper looking ones. You know, they're 2-3 kilos. I don't know what that is in pounds because I'm not American, but yeah, it's just the big fat groupers, and the stakes on them are bigger than most pollock that I've caught. And I'd actually, if you just pan frying it, they're similar to pollock. I would put them as, but just a tiny bit flakier. But yeah, really good.
Yeah.
I think they just have a bad reputation because they're so easy to shoot, aren't they? That's, you know, in terms of their taste. That's the feeling that I get. But when you start spearfishing at an early age, Matt, did your brother Dan start with you as well, or?
He did. I'm just trying to think. So there's 2 years difference between us. So he started around about the same age as what I did. So I've been doing it a couple of years before he really got into it.
Okay.
So at the time, like I said, I went out with just like a sharpened up piece of steel. But my next door neighbour, who I was friends with, he was the same age as me. His dad worked for quite a fancy yacht company. So he had this like high tech stainless steel welded sort of, it looked like a god could hold it in some Greek film. And I always remember actually, so his spear was probably about 1 meter long, and I had this tiny little thing that was, I don't know, a foot at best. So I had one fish, and I said to him, "Oh, there's another one. You can have that one." And he dived down. He got right on top of this fish, and then he didn't spear it. And he come back up, panting and going. He said, "Oh, I can't get down to it." So then I dived down. I said, "I'll get it for you." So I dived down, speared this fish, and I thought I was just like a small plate-sized place. And as I was bringing it up, it was growing and growing and growing. I got onto the surface, and it was the bigger one of the two.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah,
Nice.
so I've got like really nice old sort of like photograph with me actually with hair, so you can tell how old it is. And yeah, him looking miserable, me smiling away with these two lovely great plates on.
Amazing.
For anybody that needs a reference to that joke he just made, if you haven't got Matt on Facebook, he's Q-tip bald. So that was the joke he was getting at. Mr. Humpty Dumpty.
I also noticed in your background on Zoom, Matt, you've got the is it the BSA logo there?
That's correct, yes.
So did you have? I mean, I don't know if you want to explain to some listeners. I expect most people know what it is already, but I don't know if you want to explain to them what the BSA is and what it stands for. Did you have any involvement in it as well?
Yes. So the BSA, the British Spearfishing Association, is the governing body for spearfishers throughout the whole of the UK. So in a roundabout way, they represent everyone. They've had a bit of a stigma. They've been going since, I think, the 1950 or 1960. So quite a few years now. And what it was is originally it started off sort of like a few people getting together and organising competitions. Back a few years ago, competitions were a massive scene. Everyone wanted to sort of see where they pegged against other people, how well they could spearfish in different locations. And that's really how it started. From there, then, they've actually been involved in sending teams away to represent Great Britain in European and World Championships all across the world. Every year, it alternates between a European and a World Championship. So it's all a voluntary organisation. They do get involved with like fisheries or government officials to try and sort of discuss conservation areas and just give a perspective from the underwater. So like the scientists, because a lot of them are wearing, say, like oxygen tanks and things like that, they don't really see the same things as what we do as spearfishermen. So it is quite nice to have that relationship with them. We've been pushing for quite a few years now to try and get more involved with the decisions behind conservation areas, protected species, even things like size limits and breeding habitats or breeding grounds as well. So a lot of people put in a lot of work over many years. I have been involved for, I think it's ballpark about 7, maybe 8 years now. So I started off literally just attending competitions, being quite young, thinking I was going to go there and wipe the floor with everyone because I thought I knew how to catch fish.
Yeah.
And
Sounds
then,
like me.
yeah, and then my whole world got opened up to me, and I'm sort of seeing these blokes in their late 40s, 50s, even older, and they're catching fish that I've never even seen before in my life, big double figure bass and things like that. And then it sort of dawned on me, you've got a lot to learn here, pal.
I was exactly the same with one of my local friendly Spearos. You probably know him, Davo Callahan. He's been part of the scene for Christ at least 400 or 500 years, because he's got to be 500 years old. But I made a bit of a challenge or a jab or a jape at him at the beginning of the season with this competition that's going on with the United or the spearfishing store down in Plymouth. And I sort of said to him, "Oh, you're never going to catch me. I'm already at like 70 points." Anyway, 2 weeks later, the guy's retired. He's like 40 points ahead of me now, and he keeps messaging me saying, "You'll never catch me. You'll never catch me." So yeah, don't challenge the experience, boys. Is my lesson.
Well, it's a learning curve there, isn't it, as well? So
absolutely.
It's like a bit of a competition that you're going to have to work hard to get anywhere near. It's a good challenge.
Gonna have to close my business down and just go full-time Spearo.
While we're in the conversation of Davo, we also me and Ben call Davo his sugar daddy, because Anthony is absolutely in love with him, isn't he?
I think it's more okay. Me and Dave get along really well. We're very similar in the head, in that we're both thick. So yeah, we love the sea as much as all the other Spearos. I'm very new. He's been doing it forever, so I'm leeching all of his knowledge and saving all of his spots on my watch.
He's a very good person to sort of like be involved with and hang out with. Like you say, he's been doing it for years. I've known Davo for years, and he still does well in competitions as well now. So he's not lost any of it at all. Probably forgotten more than me and you both know, but
well, he's about the same age as Poseidon, isn't he? So
I think I've seen like on hieroglyphics there's a picture with Davo riding like a dinosaur.
Bless him.
Matt, so do you still compete in competitions then? Or?
Yes, I do. Again, because of like just getting older, family life, working life, and things like that, I've not been into it as much as what I have done previously, where I've like tried to scout the venues. I've really got a game plan together and things. But last year, I managed to attend. I think the BSA held 3 nationals. So last year I was chairman for the BSA as well, meaning that I had a lot more involvement with it. So the BSA held 3 national competitions. One was at Ringstead in Dorset. One, the Cornwall Spearfishing Club, which is newly formed last year. They held one at Talland Bay, and then there was another one at Shallowborough, which was held by the X Club. So I couldn't make the Shallowborough competition, but I dived at Talland because I was organising it. It was like a half-hearted effort, really. I was more sort of sat on my float, chatting to people, swimming around, and then unfortunately the RNLI, someone called out the RNLI, and they came through, despite being previously warned, they came through the dive area pretty quickly. So I got on my float and had to go and have a chat with them and just advise them that we had, I think it was 43 people in the water, and they came through at about 30 knots. So I said, look, please try and give it a bit of a wide berth. But it was great to work with them, and like they were brilliant after. So that was a bit of a half-hearted effort. I think I caught just 1 bass then. So it was nice to weigh in still, but I wasn't focused. However, at Ringstead, I entered with the intention of competing, and I came 4th. Yeah, 4th place, narrowly missing out on 3rd. So I didn't do too badly.
Nice.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, really good. So are you competing this year then, or?
Once again, I know that the nationals have just been postponed or two of them have, I think. So I sort of wait and see the week leading up to it. If I'm free and I'm in the right mindset, then yeah, I'll give it a go. But if something else comes up for this year, it's not my primary focus.
On that, all I'd say is if you are obviously with the week ahead, you've got your registration process, obviously, that I'm sure you're aware of. Meadfoot's next weekend, so the cut-off I think is the 9th. So just make sure if you want to do Meadfoot, register before the 9th.
Yeah, I'll have a look.
There you go.
So
I was going to ask, Matt, I've heard a lot about Team Speardock, but I'm not exactly sure what that represents. Is it like a sponsored diver thing? What actually is that?
Right, so Speardock, they're a business. They're a wholesale company. They work with a lot of like very, very high-end brands. So what they do is they supply the shops within the UK with these products. So for argument's sake, if you were trying to get hold of like anything that was MVD, from the brand MVD, the shops that you buy it from would have bought it from Speardock. The same with C4, Hermes, Sub, Picotech. They're involved with quite a few brands. It was created by 3 very, very talented and experienced Portuguese spearos. One of them is a multiple times Portuguese champion, so he really, really knows his stuff. And his dad was actually multiple times Portuguese champion as well. And then another one of them, one of the owners, he's got over 40 years spearfishing experience. He's an absolute wizard when it comes to roller guns, inverts, and things like that. So as a business, they're based in Ireland. And then what they do, like I say, is they supply the shops with the top branded equipment. They've still got strong links to Portugal, with one of the founding members and the owners living there. They've got a factory out there for some of their other brands that they deal with or that they own as well. And they're personal friends to many of the top brands. So they often offer advice or even feedback on new products. They get to test them before they come out, and they would provide like constructive criticism or positive notes for these items. So I think they've been around 2.5 years, about 2.5 years, because I know that, I've been involved with them for about 2 years, just over 2 years now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. And that's where you got that nice C4 suit from, right?
Yeah, so I'm sponsored by Speardock currently, alongside my brother, and then there's 3 Welsh lads, and we've got Matt Hunt as well in the Cornwall club, so in Cornwall.
Yeah.
So there's 6 of us in total. I was the brand ambassador for Tarpon, which is one of the companies that they deal with. They actually own the company themselves, so the products are very, very high end, but for quite a reasonable price.
Yeah.
And I've actually been asked to assemble a team effectively. So I'm the team captain for Speardock, which means I'm a sponsored diver through Speardock, and that way I've got access to any of the equipment from the brands that they deal with. I would get like sponsored.
Cool. How did you get into that? That's quite a cool, bit of a target, I guess, for us junior Spearos, to become a sponsored diver. How does that kind of work?
Well, it's changed a lot, really. I've been sponsored. I think I was first sponsored over 5 years ago, and that started out. I was sponsored by a shop in Ireland, round about in early 2017. From there, then I got chatting to the owner of the shop at the time, and he was saying, like, giving me advice and things. He was a Spanish, and he was sponsored himself, so he's a Spanish Spearo that set up the shop in Ireland. So he knew about sponsorships, he knew how they worked, and he was giving me advice from there. So it went from, I was sponsored by the shop, and then they brought in Epsilon, so the French brand. From there, I managed to get sponsored by the shop and by Epsilon at the same time. So there was an agreement that I would get my Epsilon products through the shop, but then I would promote both of them. So I'd promote the brand and the shop together.
That makes sense. So you're basically encouraging people to, buy that brand by sharing it on Instagram, YouTube, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So when I was first sponsored, you used to be able to get sponsored through. It was mostly competitive spearfishing,
right?
Because they know that, like, for you to consistently rank high in competitions, you have to be of quite a high level. You have to have like good, consistent catches. But then it's the little things like diving all year, training for competitions and training to a high level, sort of pushing yourself, diving a little bit further than maybe like the majority of people, potentially deeper currents, etc., etc. And it's all part of like the learning process. However, recently it's more about like a social media presence and recognition within the community. So you see people now, there's names like there's Spearfin, there's Dan Mann, there's Joe PK, there's the Frenchman. They're well regarded within the community.
Yeah.
So because of that, they make ideal sponsors because they can promote a brand. And the big thing is as well is no one wants it sort of like ran down their throat, do they? You don't want, buy this is the best brand, blah, 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 all the time. So if you've got quite high-end divers that are just enjoying the sport and taking photos with the equipment, then other people will say, oh, well, they're using, for argument's sake, they're using GoShot or they're using Cressy. So that's obviously a good suit. I'm going to go and buy one. And that's how like the advertising then works.
I think that's one of the big things for me. That Shalabra competition last year that you weren't able to make, that was my first competition. And I didn't catch a fish, and I hadn't caught a fish by then. But what I did get was quite a lot of info from, well, Davo was there. So I had a nice little chat with Davo. He's probably one of the first spearers I met. And yeah, he's a lovely guy. But, looking at what he was using and looking at what everybody else was using, the floats, the guns, the whatever, that was like a really good introduction to me to, what might be my next purchase. You buy a starter pack and you get into it, and then you start looking at, well, it'd be cool to upgrade my float or be cool to upgrade my gun, and what difference that makes to your abilities as a Spearo, because the people bringing in the catches did tend to have the better floats and the better guns, and and obviously all the experience to be able to explain why they're using that one.
Yeah. I found that a lot of it as well comes through maybe like their setups or why they do certain things. So like if you ask competitive Spearos the right questions, they will give you the answers. If you ask them where they're going to go at the start of a competition, they're not going to tell you. But if you ask them where they went at the end of a competition, then they will tell you, oh, I went left and there's a set of rock. Or if you ask them like the type of ground they would dive in. But the way that you've got to see it is for you to be, it's a well-known fact that like in a competition, because you've got so many divers in the water, the fish move out really quickly. So your technique has to be spot on for you to start picking up fish when people right next to you are either scaring those fish or not seeing the fish. And then that comes down then as well to streamlining your equipment. So the top like competitive boys and women as well, they've been doing it for many, many years. They've tried lots of different products. So you're not going to get the answer of this is the best I've ever used, but it's the only one I've ever used. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Because they're going to say, well, this is okay, or this would do because of this. So like I say, streamlining, for argument's sake, your float, there's a massive difference how you set your float up. For not so much just for a competition, but it will give you an edge over someone else because it's not cluttered. You've got maybe a gun strapped on in a sensible way that creates no drag. Everything is done to be as efficient as possible. And obviously with spearfishing, the better you become, the more efficient you become. So if you can then streamline all your equipment and use people's experience and advice, then it is going to help you. It's not so much about the cost of the item. You don't need the most expensive stuff. In fact, I know that Dave's got a gun, and I'm sure he's nailed the muzzle on himself. It's a wooden thing. When I looked at it, it wasn't even straight. It was offset. And I said to him, Dave, it looks like you've got a broom handle and nailed a muzzle on. And he laughed and said, well, it's not far off. But
Well-
then he wiped the floor with me, and I had a 600-pound gun.
Yeah, well, that same gun that you're talking about, unfortunately, had a bit of an accident about 2 weeks ago. And because it's that long, it started growing roots. Not long, sorry, that old. It started growing roots. But it snapped at the trigger handle. And so he's now replaned it. He's spoken to his old college buddies who are going to give him the center drill, and it's still going to be going on. It's the old what is it? Is it Dave from Only Fools and Horses, where he says, "Oh, this broom's great." Trigger. That's it. Yeah. Well, he's had 4 handles and 3 heads, but it's still going. So.
Well, Matt, going back to what you said about the experienced spearers giving you advice and helping you with your diving and improving your diving. We've actually been talking a lot, haven't we, in the last few weeks? And you've actually put me onto the Epsilon Patrol float, and I must say I'm absolutely loving that float. It's a game changer for sure.
Yeah, most definitely.
You had your Epsilon Patrol. I recall hearing that you had it set up with a GPS. Is that correct?
Yeah. So let me think when it was. It wasn't too long after I moved down to Cornwall, because I do shift work. I had a lot of spare time on my hands with not a lot to do. So I thought, you've moved down to go diving, you may as well go diving. So I was diving a lot, and I was diving all year round through storms or anything like that. But this was before the days really of navionics, when you had like the relief shading. Yeah. So you that wasn't available then. You could have a look on some maps, and it would give you a rough location for rock pinnacles and reefs. So what I used to do then was scour these maps, find out areas that were interesting to me, i.e. like a random pinnacle that drops away either side, or reefs, shipwrecks and things. What I used to do then is I had a handheld GPS on my float, and I'd swim out roughly to that area. So I pull off the coordinates off a map, swim out to that area, and just dive until I found what I wanted, or I didn't find what I wanted. And then from there, I'd bring it in. And I was taught old school, really. So probably my biggest mentor has been Eric Smith. Some of you might have heard of him, some of you might not. He's
for sure.
70s now. He's been diving 60 odd years, and he's a very, very knowledgeable man. So he taught me actually to use landmarks, which is quite an old way of diving. Before they had GPS, so you'd line up, I don't know, maybe the third lamppost in with the right-hand side of the building on one side, and then you'd line up the bush that stands higher than all the others with the church spire and the second window on the left. So that sort of thing to find your mark. So what I used to do was use the GPS to go out and find the area, dive it, and then find my landmarks from there. But what I did do, being an engineer, you're always sort of tinkering and messing around with things. So I did rig up my Epsilon Patrol with a depth sounder as well. So what I could do is I had my GPS in one part, my depth sounder on the other, and I'd literally swim for miles and miles and miles, just scanning the bottom. If I found anything, I'd drop weight it, because I always use a drop weight. So I'd drop weight it, dive. Yep, that's good. No, that's not. And going by then, obviously I had my handheld GPS, so I could put in coordinates from there. But what I've also done previously is get like what they call a scuba diving slate. So it's just a piece of plastic board with a waterproof pencil. Clip that on, and I have written out my landmarks on there if I've got various or like multiple landmarks for different. So everyone knows that there's spots, there's locations, beaches, etc. But there's spots within those spots. So you speak to a lot of the guys, their fish will come from a certain set of rocks off a certain beach. So that's why I don't mind saying to people, I don't know, I dive out of Penzance, because I'm not going to tell them I dive the 5th rock on the right-hand side and 10 yards past that. That's for them to figure out. But there are generally spots within spots. And if you're out at sea...
Where was that? I'm just writing that down.
I'll send you over the landmarks. There's some classic landmarks like lining up the cows left here with the bus as it goes by.
On a Thursday at 2 p.m. when it's high noon.
Yeah, you're learning quick.
That's it.
But yeah, so what I used to do was actually have my depth sounder, and I'd just spend a day, because I have had boats, but at the time I didn't have a boat, so I was like, why not go swimming? And it wouldn't be uncommon for me to do maybe swim a mile out and 2 miles down while I'm scanning and diving, and then swim back. That was sort of like a de-stress, a day exercise, I guess.
So how often did the locals stop you? Considering, let's paint this picture, because the Epsilon Patrol is a 7-meter rib. This thing is giant, but really, really good, obviously, for what you're doing. And I think that's where Rich has found it's really good, because it's a big old float and you can just get on it and start swimming. Use your legs as a little engine. But painting the image, so you're coming down the beach, you've got your big old rib carrying on your back, probably got back straps, carrying a 12-volt car battery and a load of GPS gear so that you could go and find some fish, with a whiteboard then when you get back saying church, car, bus stop, and dead tree.
Yeah.
I think people must think we're mad.
Probably one of my proudest moments, I guess. Considering I'm about 4 foot nothing, I look like mini me with a 7-meter rib on my back coming down the beach, and I've always got my posset out as well. You can picture it now. It's a fine sight. But I was diving.
Often.
yeah. I do run away from dads as daughters want to do. But no, I came out of the water one time, and these 2 girls were in the car. Their jaws dropped. And they actually asked if I was James Bond. So if you can imagine then, the walk sort of changed to a Conor McGregor sort of swagger up the beach. No fish whatsoever.
Tell me your response is James Bond wouldn't have a posset this big.
I think I was like tomato red from swimming, not finding the metal underwater structure that I wanted, being a bit disheartened and just wanting to get out. So I just sort of grin shyly. Yeah, and off I went then.
Well, I think we're going to go just for a quick weeby break, just for 5 minutes. But quick fire question just before we go: one piece of gear you couldn't live without?
Oh, probably. You really put me on the spot now with this. I'd say actually my patrol.
Yeah,
just because I do a lot of big swims into currents and things like that, and it's saved me a couple of times.
Nice.
For argument's sake, if I've been out and there's boats between me and the shore, at least I stand half a chance when I'm sat on my patrol. So yeah, being my patrol. The thing for me is I like exploring, and because I've been doing it a little while, I've got an eye for what reefs are likely going to produce and things like that. So don't get me wrong, some of my diving is quite close to the shore. However, I'm not fazed by a long swim. So if there's a reef that comes up and it's diveable and it's a mile out, then it's a mile out. You just swim to it.
Yeah, but you got to have the right equipment to do that, haven't you? That's the point I'm trying to make, is that you would need something like an Epsilon Patrol in order to do those kind of swims, really, unless you were very, very confident.
Yeah. Again, though, it ties in nicely with sort of your knowledge and your experience as well, because obviously there's currents. You can't just swim up to sea. It doesn't work like that. Yep. So it comes with the understanding of how the currents work in the area. And what I tend to do, so if I'm diving a new spot for the first time and I want to develop my knowledge on there, I push it. So I'd go a certain distance, dive, maybe even just a couple of duck dives, see what's about, and then that's my limit. Then I'll come back. The next time I go out and I might do 5 or 6 dives and come back. And it's a gradual process.
Yeah,
and you've got years and years of experience. This is not something that inexperienced spearos should be doing. Do you carry any safety equipment of any kind on your dives?
Not not really. So I will take my phone out sometimes, but
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, I dive a lot by myself.
Yeah.
Just because it fits around my shifts, and often I'm sort of like nipping out at short notice. But also, it it sounds really, really bad, and I put my hands up. I probably shouldn't do it, but I do. It's one of those that sometimes some of the spots I go to, I don't want the pressure of diving with someone else.
Yeah.
Because I feel that like I know that I can get myself into and get myself out of trouble pretty quickly. But if it's someone else there, it's unpredictable, and it's a bit. I hope no one takes this the wrong way, but it's a bit sort of like babysitting. I won't be diving; I'll be looking at them.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
Yeah, it's not. I've got spots I do dive with people, and I've got people that I will dive with. But I've had it over many, many years. Lots of people have messaged me saying, "Oh, I'd love to dive with you. I'm just starting out." Or I've had people that want to dive with me just purely because they want my spots.
Yeah,
I think that's getting the point with whenever I go out with Ben, it's kind of like I feel like his dad. I've got to check his gear, make sure he's got everything before he gets in the water. And then when he gets back out, I've got to make sure it's all there, because otherwise, Mr. Lucky will have to go back down to the beach and find it all tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fair. I can't really compete with that.
Yeah, so you do a lot of hunting on like pinnacles far out, don't you? I mean, because you do catch some really impressive fish, especially big pollock. Those aren't really types of fish that you're going to find too close in, are they?
Big what?
Big pollocks.
So I was just making sure I had the right thing.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a reputation now for catching big pollock, and I must admit it's borderline an obsession of mine. I've got so many other spots and other species to catch. But I don't know. I just love I just love shooting big pollock. That's it.
Is it your favourite fish to eat as well, or is it more about the hunt for you?
It's more about the hunt. To be perfectly honest, I give a lot of my fish away. Family and friends and people like that haven't really got access to like fresh fish without paying through the roof prices at shops and fishmongers and things like that. But also my partner, I'm not overly keen on like bass, for example. I give pretty much all of my sea bass away because I'm not that keen on them. I like shooting them, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I get a real kick out of someone else enjoying it as well. Yeah, so for me, it's the fun. It's just being out. And the thing with big pollock is they like certain ground. They like vertical structure. They like current. They like big kelp. And I've got a bit of an eye, without sort of being big-headed, I've got a bit of an eye for spotting what types of seaweed, what types of rocks they like, what types of areas. And I'm one of these that I like to push myself. I like a bit of a challenge. So the spots that I dive, that my favourite spots that I get big pollock from, they scare me, but I love that feeling of that adrenaline and that like being scared, however being in control at the same time.
What is it, the depth, or is it like the terrain? What is it that kind of brings on that kind of spook feeling?
It's the terrain, because I've had, for argument's sake, I've had like big pollock, what I would call over 6 pounds, so like big pollock.
Yeah.
I've had them in 18 meters. I've had them in 5 or 6 meters.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to dive deep to get big pollock, but there's often common features around it. So it would be near a deep area, for example, or there would be tide that runs through. There would be thick kelp. Generally, the more vertical the structure, the more they like it. And then from there, you can work out. They're quite inquisitive fish. I mean, the way you've got to look at it is, with a fish, if you analyze its features, you can find out where it's going to be, how it's going to act. So pollock, for example, have got a longer lower jaw and a black back and a big eye. That means that they hunt from below. Because then if you look at it, if you're going to have a big fish, it's not going to lie in sort of 2-inch kelp, will it? Because it's not covered at all. And because they're big, powerful fish, they're streamlined. They're not going to sit in tide all the time. They are going to rest up to digest their food. And that's why then they like long kelp. They like vertical structure that the tide swirls around, because it would bring the fish in their food, it would bring it into them, and then they can spring up and attack from there. But,
Fascinating.
if you look at like bass, for example, bass with like a white belly, both of the jaws are the same length. They're more mid-water fish, but they come into the shallows to digest their food. So that's why it's not a common secret that you can catch big bass very close to the shore.
Yeah.
But that's why you don't really get pollock there, because the seaweed and the ground just doesn't suit. I'm not saying you've got to go a mile off, but you've got to spot certain kelp, ledges, tide, gullies, things that they like, and that's when you'd get the pollock.
Yeah, really interesting. I've just been doing quite a bit of bass hunting recently, and obviously I'm a complete noob to this, but I've spotted, certain patterns. They're interesting to see if they apply to pollock. I've seen plenty of big bass, but not so much the pollock. It's obviously to do with the spots. But with a bass, I find that certain periods of the tide, they'll tend to sit in the weed and kind of chill out, maybe surrounded by some rock structure on a sandy bed. And they'll kind of sit there just kind of almost like asleep, digesting their food, I guess. And at other times of the tide and maybe moon and the sun and all that kind of stuff, they tend to be out hunting. Is it the same for pollock? Do you catch equal numbers, half asleep as well as hunting? Or is there kind of like a phase of their, day that you kind of catch them in mostly?
I tend to find them more in current. If there's current running, I think basically what it is that when there's current running, the pollock are hunting. So what they do is they sit just on top of the kelp or very high up in the kelp, and that's why then you see them more. But when there's no current, I think they find structure often out in deep water, and then they rest up to digest the food. You will find them laying up in gullies, but that's a very specific way of hunting for them. And you will find bass the same way, laying under the kelp. So generally, I tend to shoot most of my pollock when the tide's running,
right?
Because they're more active, they're feeding.
Just because pollock is one of the ones that I see quite often, quite close in from shore dives, where the catch limit for pollock is 30 centimeters or 300 mil, and whenever I dive down, I sort of you see a 300 mil pollock and you go, that's way too small. It's not worth taking. But I suppose just trying to get onto with the catch limits for a new Spearo. One of the things I don't know whether you've got a comment on is if you're unsure, don't shoot. And do you find that you sort of go down and you'll see a shoal coming in of bass, pollock, any kind of fish, and you're on the fence as to whether they're sizable, and you just sit there and watch them. Do you find that, or?
Generally, because I've been doing it for quite a long time, I find that I'm quite a good gauge of size. And for argument's sake, like I wouldn't shoot 30 centimeter pollock anyway. Just it's not snobbish, but the marks I dive, they grow a lot bigger than that. So you learn certain characteristics to spot like a bigger fish. But that being said, in some conditions, I will, if I know that it looks like a bigger fish, but I can't really gauge what size, then I will shoot one to then see what size it's going by. Because there's a spot I dive, West Cornwall, and the water there can go ridiculously clear. I've been there before, and scuba divers offshore have reported over 30 meter viz. And I've been there. You can see a diver at 16 meters. You can make out every letter on his wetsuit. But then you can't gauge the fish because obviously it's clearer water. They sit a bit further off.
So I find it's very similar in the opposite viz as well, where you've got half a meter viz and all you can see is this dark, murky shadow. One of the spots that I dive that's similar to what you're saying, down at 16, 18 meters. the pollock that I shot, I thought he's over 300. He's probably a pound or so. Come up and it's like 5.5 pounds. You're like, wow. Like, but he was a meter away from me, and you just couldn't tell. But I suppose it's just trying to, for the newer spearos getting in, especially the shore divers that aren't doing 80 meters. I think it's just something to clarify that if you're not sure, especially with bass, is my biggest one, is because they're a bigger minimum size. Your perception of the size underwater, they look a lot bigger than they are underwater.
Yeah, I think for like shore diving, generally you're more likely to see fish around about that. Like if they're minimum size, they're more likely to be in shoals, both pollock and bass. What I would say is try and take the bigger one out of the shoal. But if you're really questioning, do I, don't I, there's a good chance it's going to be close to the limit, shall we say. So for me, a lot of spearfishing is instinct. So I would look at a fish and I'll go, no. And other people would have shot those fish, but that's my instinct. However, if you do go on the premise of like always questioning yourself, you can fall into the habit of hesitating. And then when you do see a fish that's a bit bigger and you go, is it, isn't it, and you scared it, you can miss out. So there's a fine balance. Yeah, I don't want people like just randomly shooting everything they see and going, oh, well, I thought it was this, I thought it was that. That's not good for the sport. It's not good for them. It's not good for anyone. But taking maybe like the bigger one out of the shoal, the biggest one out of the shoal, to see if it, and gauge your sizing from there, is not too much of a bad thing. And it's just experience, isn't it? Let's be fair. Everyone has shot probably an undersized fish at some point in their life. You speak to all of the guys that have been doing it for a long, long time, and they will say, yeah, I got it wrong on that day. One fish is not going to change the world. It's not going to decimate stocks or anything. What I would say is, if you do that, don't snap it all over social media. Don't be proud of the fact that you've done it. And enjoy it still. Because no one's going to shoot sort of like a 3-inch fish, are they? It's going to be... I tend to say to people, if it looks about plate size, have a go.
Yeah, I think the other comment to make on that as well is and we forget, because even though I've only been doing it, 8 or 9 months, is fish identification, and actually knowing what fish is what, knowing the difference between a pollock, a bass, a mullet. When you're getting into the triggers and the gilt-edge breams and stuff, knowing the difference. And YouTube is such a fascinating tool for our day and age, and you can learn very quickly what the differences are. Yeah.
For me, it's all about support as well. We're all part of the same community. There's people that are like newly starting out, maybe been doing it a couple of seasons or whatever. Everyone's going to have sort of like off days or make mistakes, but people shouldn't jump down their neck and get on them straight away about it. I'm just as proud of someone who's caught their first bass that's probably going to say, I don't know, 43 centimeters, 1 centimeter over minimum size. I'm absolutely over the moon for them. I think it's an incredible fish, and I think that should be celebrated. People shouldn't be questioning, oh, is that sizable? Not on public forums anyway. If you want to ask and you're that interested, then message them privately, but don't shut people down, because that's how you will deter people from the sport. You put people off very quickly. Like I say, there's so much to learn. You're forever learning. Every single day that you go out spearfishing, you will subconsciously learn something new. So work with the people that are new. Educate them. Don't really have a go at them and point out, oh, you shouldn't shoot a wrasse. If they're going to shoot a wrasse and they're going to eat it, enjoy it. Crack on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, going back to what you said about you give a lot of your fish away, it kind of fits in what we're talking about now, really, where a lot of guys will, give hate out because they see people giving away their fish on the shore to just any old person that wants it. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because I think if you're going to give a bass away to someone who sees you come out of the water and questions you and asks you what it is, and you feel like they're going to eat it, and you ask them if they're going to eat it and they are going to eat it, then by all means give it away. Don't be giving hate to that person. I feel like potentially that person who receives the fish might go away and think about it and go, actually, you know what, I might take that sport up. And it's potentially a way of growing the sport, getting people interested in the sport, getting it in a positive light as well. Because there is a bit of negativity around the sport, especially when it comes to vegans, etc. But yeah, I think it's a good point to make that, we should be praising people when they do things that don't really fit the norms, if that makes sense, like shooting wrasse or giving fish away at the beach.
Did you say that you give fish away? Are you absolutely insane? If at any point you come back from a dive and you've got so many fish that you feel like you're going to give them away, please keep them and bring them to me. Thank you very much.
I'm waiting for the day that me and you go diving and you blank, and then I'm going to give a fish away to someone at the beach and just watch you and laugh.
Nah, a blank isn't something that I know. Hence the reason I got 5 kids. But never mind.
So just going back to the perception of spearfishing, Matt, obviously because you're quite heavily involved in the BSA. What do you think the perception of spearfishing in the UK is at the minute? Do you think there's a way for us to grow the sport? I mean, essentially, this is what we're doing with this podcast, is we want to be a part of that process of informing new people about different topics, bringing the community together, and we want to be a part of that. And I just want to get an idea of what you think about it, really.
Well, to be honest, I've seen a boom over the years that I've been doing it. It has boomed massively, probably a couple of times as well. I look at it now, especially living in Cornwall, I can see it from a different perspective, that you've got other water users, i.e. like surfers, for example, that they just love being out in the sea, which I totally agree with. I'm fully with them. But like on a flat day when there's no surf, because their love for the sea, they might go out spearfishing. They go out in their surfing suit. They pick up maybe a cheap spear gun from like a local surf shop or scuba dive shop or something. And for me, it's great to see those people like getting involved. Maybe they grab some spider crabs, they shoot some bass, whatever. But I think it's all about sort of like encouraging and building a community by understanding that everyone started out at some point. Everyone's made mistakes. So offer out advice. And when it comes to like fishing spots, you don't have to tell someone your secret spot. But I give a lot of credit to people who would say, look, be careful of the tides on there. Don't dive that on the ebb tide. Because you're encouraging people and you're looking out for someone else then on a safety thing. Whereas if you went the opposite way, you turn into like a bit of a snob and you're like, well, it's my spot. And then if someone goes out and maybe like they get caught out in currents or something and they have to be rescued, I think like you could have prevented that. But instead you've taken the high horse approach of thinking you know it all and just not helping out. So for me, it's expanding. It's expanding quick as well. Obviously, we all know you don't have to have a license to have a spear gun. So anyone can get hold of a spear gun and go out and have a go. But I think it's really important just to promote like the safer side of it and the awareness. I'm not trying to push everyone onto a course or anything like that, but little snippets of advice from reliable sources and good advice would go a long way. And I think that way, through things like podcasts, people sharing catch reports, and people putting their hands up and saying, look, you know what, I had a bad day today, this went wrong, and going through it is better for everyone. It's better for them because they can reflect, and newbies will go, oh, do you know what, I heard something about that the other day, I'm going to keep an eye out for it. So I think at the minute it's on a good track to expand and just like more people enjoy it, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously the bigger the sport grows, and I'm guessing obviously we'll have a larger voice in terms of the IFCA regulations and just being able to talk and be part of that, really, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I think that comes as part of like the appreciation for the sport as well. So like we were saying earlier about giving away a fish, generally, if you give away a fish to someone, it's because they've asked questions and they're asking, what are you doing? Where are your your scuba bottles. What do you mean you free dive? Where did you go? And they're interested, but they're the people then that are going to go back and go, oh, do you know what? Saw this amazing thing on holiday, spearfishing. Really, really cool people, and they're just being part of the city. So like you get a positive reputation from that, and then from there you can work with like the government agencies because you're more respected. And instead of like, I don't know, I know people that have pulled pots out of rocks for fishermen, and they've got a really, really healthy relationship. They can talk about what's being caught where, and it's nice to compare. So fishermen will say, I'm catching a load of bass, but the spear fisherman might be seeing a load of cod, for example. Yeah. And you can gain that insight then through just being more inclusive all around.
I think to people that are listening to the podcast that aren't necessarily a Spearo themselves, or maybe they're friends or family of Spearos, to sort of give a gauge of what personally I think Spearos are, to give you an idea. So I was out with Ben in Tor Bay. When was it? I think was it this week or last week? I can't remember. But and as I was swimming back in, obviously a lot of people see us Spearos and they think, like you were saying, with the whole pisset getting out bright red, you're some kind of secret agent, special forces. But I saw there was 3 kids and their parents sat on the rocky beach as we were getting out, and there were, like, during the whole dive, there's millions of spider crabs. And probably because I'm a father, but something in my head just said, get 3 little spiders and take the kids 3 little spiders. And because they were looking through the rocks trying to find all the velvet crabs, and I come out holding the legs of 3 spider crabs, put them in front of the kids and just say, have a look, put them back in once you're finished. And the faces on them, it was kind of like, all right, maybe I am a nice guy, but just don't tell anyone.
Yeah. The perception, I think, is definitely something that needs working on. It doesn't help, when we're not joined as a community and trying to go on the same track, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And just a comment, that was kind of where I was going with that a second ago. And I had a brain fart. But with the community, as I'm only new, that one of the things that I have seen is how secretive it is, to sometimes a detriment of safety, like you were saying earlier on, of the new Spearos. There's one spot, if you've got somebody that's new into spearfishing and is really, really active and really wants to get into it and enjoy it, with the tools that we've got now, like Navionics, you spend hours and hours and hours looking for spots, marking them, potential places you're going to go in the future. But it would be good, like you were saying earlier, not to tell the people that at that particular beach, the third rock from the left at 2:00 is the best place to go. But to say, actually, there's one spot that I'm happy to say, the Skerries, is a boat dive. And if you're not boat diving, it is massively dangerous. The current rips through there. I don't know if you've been out there, Matt, but it was one of the spots that it looks like a really easy shore dive, and I'm like, I'll go down there, I'll climb down some rocks and go and get in the Skerries. I'd be dead. It's very dangerous, but it's just trying to get past that part in the community and help everybody as much as possible, more for the safety aspect than giving away your fish.
Yeah, and I think it's also not just within the community, it's also outside of the community. Not everybody in the world wants to be a Spearo, but maybe they're interested in why we do it. And I don't mean, just because we enjoy being under the water or whatever, but also, it's a really sustainable sport. It's a really sustainable way to put food on the plate, much, much more sustainable than other fishing methods. And I think there's a lot of people that could benefit from understanding that more than they currently do. We're going to move on to some quick fire questions now. So, Matt, are you ready? Don't know if you've done any prep for these, but best tip for a newbie?
I would say join a club. And the reason behind this, so we've recently set up the Cornwall Spearfishing Club. Like I say, there's the Exeter Spearfishing Club in Devon. There's the Dorset Spearfishing Club. We're looking at setting one up in Southsea and Sussex. There's many clubs available to people. The idea behind them is that you've got a local contact. So regardless of what level you're at, you can go there, interact with like-minded people, but you can pick up a buddy. You can dive new places safely and be involved. I've always been, well, I was taught it really. If you want to be a champion, you sleep with champions, you involve yourself with the people that you want to be, so to speak. So going by that, then, if you join a club, because everyone's there for the same thing, it's only going to make your experience better, and it will help you learn, because they're going to just quickly highlight maybe bad points and give you steps to take to make yourself better quicker.
Yeah, definitely. It's been hugely beneficial for me. We've had a couple of, I was saying to the lads earlier, we've had a couple of nice events this week with, how to tie your bands on, nice club dive at the weekend that we're going to. So yeah, I think that's a really important point. What's the scariest moment you've had spearfishing, if you don't mind sharing?
If you'd asked me a few years ago, it probably would have been an encounter with a poor beagle shark that made the local paper endorse it. But since then, actually, it's more of like a hindsight sort of thing.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I was unfortunate enough that I blacked out in the water. I was lucky enough that I woke up with one arm slung over my float, coughing out water.
Wow.
So it could have taken a turn for the worse. The reason for that being, at the time, maybe it was bravado, maybe I don't know, but I didn't really see it for what it was. However, now when I look back, if that had gone the other way, I would have missed out on so many different things, like family moments, meeting my partner who's like my soulmate, lots of things like that. So for me now, that's probably the scariest moment I've had spearfishing. I
can imagine. But did you learn anything from that? Was it just, don't push yourself too far? Was there anything else, to share with everybody else?
Yeah, I'm a thinker, really. So I go through lots of different things in my head all the time. And on that, after reflecting, I could see exactly what I'd done leading up to that effectively caused it. It was a combination of sort of like dehydration. I'd just come back from a lad's holiday where I was boozing pretty much 24/7 for a whole week.
Yeah.
Stupidly, I picked up the wrong wetsuit and weight belt combination. So I picked up a 3mm jacket instead of a 5 with the same weights. I was diving down. The water was clearer than it was normally. But in my head, I was saying, well, you're good for a minute and a half. You can do a minute and a half. Aim for a minute and a half. So I set myself like a time target, not taking into effect that this was the first dive I'd done in a month. Like I said, severely dehydrated and everything else. When I was diving down, I thought it was only 5 meters. And I was laying on the bottom and then going through lots and lots and lots of contractions because that's what I'd done previously. You'd been fine. No problem. When I looked at my watch, I was actually at about 15 and a bit meters. I'd gone over a minute and a half, and it dawned on me then, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So as I swam up, typically, like if you really are at the end of your breath hold, sometimes you would start panicking, you're flapping around a bit and things like that. You've seen it on the videos yourself. That's what I did. I got like the blurry vision, I got the tunnel vision, and the sound is something I always remember. It always sits with me now. I could hear it slow down, that. So it was a combination of lots of things, and now I'm very aware of my body. I listen to my body. I dive not based on times. I dive when I'm ready and when I know that I'm ready for it. So yeah, there's a lot to learn with that. And the single piece of advice that I give to everyone is listen to your body. If something is not right, then it's not right. There's no shame.
I was just going to say, there's a couple of rules of thumb, isn't there, as well, like around leaving 2 or 3 times your bottom time on the surface, using a watch so you can be alerted if you're going too deep or staying down too long. Yeah. I think Anthony was saying about that last week. You can also take off your weight belt if you're feeling like you could be in trouble, holding it in your hands as you surface. Is there anything else that is worth sharing?
I did have. There's a couple of things. So the biggest thing as well is learning your own limits.
Yeah.
It's going to sound almost ironic, this, but the people highest at risk are like the intermediate divers.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for this is because as a total novice diver, you're scared. You don't know what it feels like to push your limits. You don't know how far out to swim. You don't know how long to hold your breath for. But as an intermediate, you've got an idea of what you can do. However, you've seen the people that are the next level up, and you're pushing yourself towards that. So what I would say to people is, like, always listen to your instincts. And if you are on the bottom and you have pushed it too long, like you say, take off your weights belt, hold it in your hand, and tell yourself to slow down. Because the biggest thing that everyone does is panic, and you see arms flapping, that they start kicking faster. All of this uses more oxygen. So if you really have gone too far and you're aware of it, hold your weights belt in your hand and then tell yourself to slow down. Because in doing that, you actually preserve an oxygen.
Yeah, sorry. Well, one of the things that I was taught during my freediving training was, once you get to that point and once you're at the end of the dive, actually one of the best things you can do is, once you start coming out to the surface, close your eyes and just start kicking, and just slowly kick and just think, I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm going to the surface now. And once you close your eyes, your brain is obviously what's using all the oxygen, or most of the oxygen in our body. And once you close your eyes, it removes that sense, and it just allows you to calm, because you're not thinking, yeah, I'm underwater, but you're really calm. So whenever I go back to the surface, even sometimes once I've caught a fish, I just close my eyes, wait until my head pops up against the water. But sometimes you can then, there's a detriment to that, where once I was coming to the surface with my eyes closed, and bonk, there's a boat on my head.
Yeah, you always got to look out for those big red things, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of reflecting that could be done in these situations, but we're glad you're all right, mate, that's for sure. We haven't got much time left, unfortunately, but I did promise a certain someone that you know very well that I'll ask you one particular question. That question is, if there is one person that you could dive with today, who would that be more than anyone else?
It would be my brother.
I bet you he knew that was going to be the answer.
Yeah, I don't know. Me and him have been more like best friends since we were young. If there's anywhere or anyone I could dive with ever, it's always going to be anywhere with him. I'm just more relaxed. I enjoy it more. I've seen him get PB fish. He's seen me get PB fish, depths and everything. And it's never ending. There's banter there. There's Mickey taking. There's pride, everything. It's a complete dive. Any dive with that.
I bet he's blushing right now listening to this. But it's been fantastic having you on, mate. And we really appreciate you taking time to talk to us.
No, thank you, guys. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Matt. We'll see you soon. Hopefully, at some of the competitions where you'll eat my dust.
Sounds a plan.
Cheers, Matt. Cheers,
Thanks,
Matt.
guys.
We'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Matt Newman, for coming on the podcast. It was a great podcast. But next week, we've got, I believe, Sam Seeley on episode 3. Is that right, Anthony?
We do. My Mr. Bearded Spearo friend. Massive beard, bloody awesome at foraging. And so next week I'm going to be going into spearfishing and foraging. So foraging for lobsters, crabs, crustaceans, nice. any gold, lost treasure. But Sam's very, very well-known Spearo in the community. He's got a fantastic YouTube channel and a good following on that. But he's really, really good at finding the lobsters and brown crabs. So we're going to be going into him to find out how he navigates his way through deep, dark holes.
Nice. Sounds really good. I'm looking forward to that. And Ben, I believe you set up a dedicated email address for our listeners to email across if they wanted any information.
Yeah, guys. So if there's anything that you'd like to hear on this channel, just send your request to thespearohangout@gmail.com. We'll pick that up and we'll get back to you, or maybe even put a shout out to you in a future episode. So thespearohangout@gmail.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
And I think we're even taking audio clips from listeners if they want it to be included in future episodes. And Anthony, you're working on the website, I believe.
Yeah, so the email Ben just given out hopefully is going to be temporary for not too long, as we've got obviously the spearohangout.com is a website that's a work in progress. So we're going to have a website, we're going to have a forum, and obviously we're going to have all of our podcasts available on there, some merchandise that will, I'm sure, happen in the future, and just again the Spearo Hangout, but also the website will be a hub for everything to do with us, everything to do with spearfishing, and all be in one place, nice, easy to navigate.
Sounds great. I mean, yeah, if you guys are enjoying the podcast, please give us a rating on Spotify. That really helps us. It's a lot of work that goes into those episodes, and yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, awesome episode, guys. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was awesome.
No, it's fantastic. Thank you very much for hosting, Rich.
Yeah, no worries. Well, if anyone's wondering why I'm hosting this week's episode, is because we're inundated with emails requesting that I host it because people want to listen to my sexy South African accent. So but the real
bullshit.
the real reason is that we are taking turns hosting each week, aren't we? So next week will be
next.
Next week will be the Passett Ogler, is what we call him. But right now I'm staring at Anthony's bulge in our conference call, so I think it's about time that we leave. Cheers, lads. Take care.
Cheers, lads. See you later.
Have a good evening. Bye, boys.
Bye.
Bye.